TheWhoThatDaily.com. That's right, TheWhoThatDaily.com. Your one-stop shop for everything New Orleans Saints, New Orleans Pelicans, LSU Tigers, even the top flight boxing news. So if you're a Who That and you're looking for a place to stay up on your team, TheWhoThatDaily.com is your site. TheWhoThatDaily.com for the sport Who That in all of us.
Go Tigers, go Tigers, go Tigers, go Tigers, go Tigers.
Tiger talk.
Go Tigers, go Tigers, go Tigers, go Tigers, go Tigers.
Tiger talk.
Go Tigers, go Tigers, go Tigers, go Tigers, go Tigers.
Tiger talk.
Go Tigers, go Tigers.
You're now listening to Tough Tiger Talk with Big Q and the guys on the Pro Media Network.
You're now rocking with Tough Tiger Talk. What's going on, fam? Much love to the LSU fighting football family members. We're in the building. Much love to the fam. Appreciate y'all. Hope y'all having a spectacular. It's a beautiful Saturday, man. Beautiful Saturday. Beautiful time to talk about LSU football, man. Welcome into the live stream. Please feel free to hit the like button, share the show, stream me your social media as well. I'm Big Q chiming on this episode of Tough Tiger Talk, and we'll be recapping or bringing up some news updates for Derek Stingley, Glen Logan injury updates, as well as other news in the Tiger Nation. Big ups to Revolt. Big ups to my dog, Revolt Control. Go Tigers to the family members. Big Q chiming in, and also have my co-host, Uncle Mozzy's in the building. Uncle Mozzy, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good, brother. How you doing?
Doing good, bro. Feeling good about it, man. A lot to talk about, man, in the world of LSU football, bro. Stingley and Glen Logan's injuries are not dire, according to various reports, man. And we'll kind of tap into that and get it going. Very interesting, intriguing news, Uncle Mozzy. What do you think about the injury? Something to talk about or not? Because I really, Coach O said it's a little break in his foot. Like that's a small thing, but we talked about it. Coach O's kind of old school with his philosophy or his thought process on injuries, man. Just a little break in the foot.
Well, I mean, shit. He's obviously from a different school of thought. Anytime you refer to anything that's broken on your body as little, I would dare to say that he has a completely different train of thought or school of thought on how we would think that that injury would be for Stingley. And I mean, to be honest, it kind of all depends on where they are and how prepared they are going into that week one matchup. Because outside of that, I definitely think that he can overcome it going into the meat of the season. Like we discussed off air around that first part of October, going to the first mid part of October when they really start SEC conference play. I think at that point he'll be healed up enough to go 100%. So according to the schedule, which we just literally went over maybe, 15, 20 minutes ago off air, we clearly see that LSU has pretty much a cakewalk of a schedule up until around that October the 16th or 13th or whatever date that we had just spoke about off air. That seems to be the stick point. So I don't think he'll have an issue going forward. Outside of that, I mean, Stingley seems to be not as concerned about it, as anybody else. He just inked his deal, his latest NIL deal with Sweet Ride. He's got partnerships now with Raising Cane's and Walk-Ons and Baton Rouge-based Bistro and Bar. So, I mean, he had a pretty busy week. So maybe these injuries are, as Coach O says, little.
Yeah, good business move for Stingley lining up things, man. He's definitely going to be a top flight cornerback in the next level, man. And he's definitely doing this business thing. All right, get into some of the article right here from LSU Tiger Wire. As a part of his training or failing fall camps, injuries will occur. LSU Tigers near the beginning of the season as they just 3 weeks away from the kickoff against the UCLA Bruins. Coach O provided updates on two of the prominent starters on the defensive side of the ball. Regarding the defensive line, Glen Logan has what the coach is calling a, quote, little break of the foot, end quote. So Logan isn't expected to play in the opener against UCLA on the road or at home against McNeese State. It remains to be seen if the defensive tackle will be back on the field against Central Michigan on September the 18th before they open SEC play on the road. Now, of course, running back T.D. Price, as I call him, missed practice on Thursday. Coach O called it a minor calf injury, and he will be probably practice on Monday with no limitations. The All-American cornerback Derek Stingley Jr. is dealing with a minor camp injury. He also missed practice as well, much like T.D. Price. Stingley is expected to return on Monday. The plan was to start working him into the offense as a running back and a wide receiver. Very intriguing. And of course, this is what was said. We're going to do it this week. In fact, if we're going to do it today, he got a minor injury. He said we're going to do it. I talked to Derek and Jake about that type of plays we're going to run. We're going to see where we are next week. I don't know if he's going to be full speed next week. I'm going to play him both ways if he's not full speed. Yeah. So yes. So it's intriguing, man, to say the least, about Stingley and that type of role, man. But last time I seen a cornerback doing as much as that, man, you know who it was, Uncle Mozzy. So, I mean, the LSU's open up their imagination a little bit, my friend.
I'll tell you one thing. Now that I'm up in age, I've been ducking this old prostate exam, but I think that I might give Coach O a call and see if he won't mind administering it, because if something is wrong, he's going to automatically tell me it's little. He's going to make me feel really good about whatever the situation is. Like, I need him to be a doctor. Like, he should have definitely went to and got his medical license, because I mean, everything with him is no big deal. It doesn't matter. The leg could be cut in half, saw it off, laying on the field next to the guy. Oh, that's nothing. We can reattach it. Just get some ice. We'll get it right back on. You'll see, no problem. Take him to the locker room. I really hope. I totally understand being optimistic, but you're talking about two beasts, powerhouses, that anchors of your defense that play on two different levels. You got a first level player and you got a third level player, both of which you're going to need by the time you start conference play for sure. I would definitely like to have both Glenn and Stingley, for that season opener. But I mean, that's not going to happen at this stage. But he's really taking it lightly. So I don't know if it's an approach where he just doesn't want to get people excited about it, or if he's serious right now. And I'm really hoping he just doesn't want to get people excited about it, as opposed to him being serious.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. We'll see how that shakes, but yeah, I think he's a bit underplaying it down. Definitely underplaying it down. So I don't think it's nothing to be upset about. Because if it was, I'm pretty sure Coach O is honest enough to let you know. Anyway, let's get into the next article. NCAA reportedly extends the investigation into LSU athletics. Here we go with this one. This one is by way of Saturday Down South, and they were basically reporting on it that the NCAA has extended its investigation to LSU athletics. Wilson Alexander of The Advocate reports that the NCAA was scheduled to complete its investigation of alleged violations by LSU men's basketball and football programs by July the 31st, but the deadline was then extended. Investigation was previously referred to the independent accountability review process due to its complexities. LSU requested a separation of football and basketball cases, which was then denied by the NCAA. Now, pre-The Advocate, the IARP's complex case unit in LSU had agreed upon the completion date of July the 31st. The spokesman, Ballard, told Alexander that the completion date had been extended and that the investigation is still ongoing. Now, the Advocate article states that once the investigation is complete, the complex case unit will have 60 days to issue LSU a notice of allegations. After that, the case will be heard by a review panel. The panel's decision and penalties levied are final and cannot be appealed. Now, Will Wade's contract states that LSU's men's basketball coach can be fired for cause if the program receives a notice of allegations for either level 1 or a level 2 violation. So this will be worth keeping an eye out as the NCAA's continuing investigation Uncle Mozzy, thoughts on this, man?
Well, I mean, you got to reap what you sow, and I think for a really long time, it's been a kind of a turn the other cheek approach to it, especially when you're winning and you have winning program. This is LSU football's 21st consecutive season being in the top 25. So when you have that kind of speaking in football terms, damn near in human terms, generational success, you tend to sweep a lot of things under the rug, and you tend to overlook and turn your head on a lot of things. And I mean, that happens across, we saw it with Penn State a couple years back. So it happens. I mean, there's no sense in us being oblivious to it or pretending that it doesn't exist. I think with that being said, on the flip side, that, all parties involved, and I really hate to sound like this, I do, but everybody that's involved, all parties involved, and whatever the finalized sanctions are, I think we have to come to a common sense kind of a consensus on this, because at the end of the day, and I hate to be this guy, but at the end of the day, who's really going to pay the penalty for that? What took place? Will it be the previous violators, or will it be the future players and student athletes who had absolutely nothing to do with what happened? You see what I'm saying? And I mean, obviously, you could take the approach of, well, I mean, they don't necessarily have to come there and play if the sanctions are too tough. They can go somewhere else. But I mean, for a lot of kids, at the end of the day, this is a child's game. So, you got kids sitting at home, that were 12, 13, 14, and all they could dream about was the day they put on the purple and gold. And, for a lot of the up and coming kids, that is going to be stripped and taken away from him, and that's very, very unfortunate. So I think that despite what happened, I think that we need to tread light, and we kind of need to not be so program dominant heavy where we're going to punish the program, because ultimately LSU is going to be $100 million school regardless. So are they going to be $100 million school with all of their players and all of the student athletes that kind of are relying on this to escape their situation? Or are they going to be $100 million school without offering that many scholarships and putting a lot of sanctions on those programs? So that's kind of where we need to be at. And I hate to be that guy. I do, because I understand that, there were victims, or, there was some kind of underhanded dealings going on. But I do think that we got to keep in the back of our mind these kids moving forward. Hello. So
yeah, that's a major part of it. I think you're right, Uncle Mozzy, on that. We have to watch out, man, because I think this is going to be pretty big. This is going to be a pretty big shoe to drop on LSU athletics. We'll monitor it, man. But when
we've seen it happen in the past, we've seen it with UCLA, the Reggie Bush scandal.
Yep,
we've seen it before. So I mean, we know they will pull the trigger. I just think that if they do, it'll be quite unfortunate for kids who had nothing, kids and staff for that matter, who had nothing to do with any of this.
Yeah, this is true, man. In the basketball program, if this is depending on how the shoe falls, it could be something else. But then again, man, you got to do the right thing, man. You definitely got to do the right thing, and that's what it's up to. That's what they're trying to determine, if LSU, how bad or how egregious this is, man. So, man, this is tough. But anyway, let's get into the next article right here. We're going to talk about Mr. Mike Jones ready to take on the new champ. You know who. Mike Jones ready to take on a new challenging role with LSU football. Now, this is brother that transferred from Clemson, and Jones talks his decision to transfer and how he fits with LSU's defensive identity. This is from the LSU Country. As Mike Jones begins a new chapter in the real Death Valley, the former Clemson linebacker has seen the highs and lows of what college football has to offer. Earning all ACC honors a season ago, the versatile linebacker showcases athleticism all season long as he bounced back after, ironically, a national championship loss to LSU in 2019. Now, Jones Jr. couldn't help but smile as he looked back on that national championship loss to Tigers as he now suits up for the purple and gold. He says that he remember, quote, that he says, I remember getting down here and there was just overwhelming pressure, end quote. Jones said, quote, you guys were at home. We thought we were the away team, all that little stuff built into the pressure of the game. It was an interesting experience. We go back and forth watching film, and everyone on LSU was so happy in that moment. But I was on the other side. We were all heartbroken. I appreciate all the moments, and I'm glad you guys won it. We're not glad because I lost, but being here now, I'm glad we won. End quote. Now, as Jones Jr. entered the first fall camp as an LSU Tiger, he shifted his focus on to what he can bring to this deep linebacker core, proven face on the field. Jones Jr. came to Baton Rouge for an expanded role to play in the box. Now, he left Clemson. He says, I left Clemson to try to find a new role in the system. Jones said, I wanted to play more in the box. And it's been great here in Louisiana. I met with Coach Baker, Coach O, and Coach Jones on Zooms when everything was shut down. One of my biggest reasons for coming here was to challenge myself in the SEC West. And in the SEC, you can't take anything for granted. So it's been a challenge, but I'm glad to be here and I'm appreciative of the opportunity. Now, of course, he sounds good. So now, of course, you look at the new role that's being provided for him on the new roster, and he says it isn't an easy process, but Jones Jr. has embraced the adversity as he adjusts to the new system and inside position. His work ethic and lead by example mentality is putting him in a position to provide Coach Orgeron and his staff vital snaps this fall in Death Valley. Now, the leadership of LSU veteran linebacker Damone Clark has played a pivotal role in a successful transition of Jones. Along with Clark, you got Bakersfield, who has taken the athletic talent under his wing to make sure he's fully acclimated once the season starts. So, I mean, you got a lot of talent there, as mentioned, Clark, Bakersfield, and now you throw Jones in there as well. And then you got people like Navonta Q. Strong. Uncle Mozzy, the linebacker role, Mike Jones transferring Clemson. Coach O talked about him, big up Jones as well, and his role of how he will impact the linebacker core. Let's talk about that.
Well, I think first off, we have to acknowledge the fact that this is the Deshaun Watson / Trevor Lawrence fallout. I think that the writing is on the wall for a lot of people at Clemson, and they realize that their 5-6 year run over the last 5-6 years has come to an abrupt halt. I think he made the correct decision, especially from the black linebacker slot, because that's what we produce. SEC we produce, and Ohio State for whatever reason, we produce linebackers and safeties in secondary. So with that being said, him looking at, okay, I got a chance to go ball out at an SEC West school who plays against the likes of Alabama, who plays against the likes of Auburn, or I can stay in the ACC with the Trevor Lawrence-less, Deshaun Watson-less Clemson team and hope that we can strike gold for yet a third time in the last 6 or 7 seasons. I don't see that happening, and I think that he will be an impact player. I think that Clemson's defense overall was fairly solid the last 2 years. So I think that with all of that being said, he can't hurt. I think that he'll definitely help. Another plus is we're getting a guy, because we very rarely get this on the collegiate level, where we get a guy not only who has experience at that position as being one of the elites, but he's got that experience coming out of a winning program. See, most of the time when we get players that come in the trade portal, you might get a guy from a Boise State or a TCU, and we get excited about those guys because we've seen them do things at their little school. And then when they get to the big leagues, we want to see if that game can translate. Okay, well, with Mike Jones, you don't have to worry about that because he's already played on the biggest stage you can play multiple times. So this guy knows what it takes to win. He understands what it is to get there. He understands what it is to be part of a winning tradition, because that's what he's been a part of his entire collegiate career. So when you have an opportunity to not only seize a player that's tops in his position, but play for a school that's tops amongst powerhouses last 4, 5 years, 6 years running, that's not even a diamond in the rough. That's what they call a gift horse. So to look him in the mouth would be an understatement. We have to pat ourselves on the back, pat Coach O and the staff on the back for sneaking him away from Clemson as we did. And I think we need to move forward with those pieces.
Yeah, he was getting Mike Jones was a big move for LSU.
It was.
Of course, they upgraded the linebacker core. I mean, of course, you had Clark we talked about Bakersfield, but getting Jones here with his experience, like you talked about, that's going to have a big impact. And of course, guys like Navonda Q Strong and all these other guys that they have, the linebacker position would be a position of strength for LSU going into the season. So I'm very excited about we make no bones about it here on Tough Tiger Talk. We absolutely love what LSU is doing on the defensive side of the ball. And Coach O, you can see when he talks about his defensive line, like, and of course the additions of some of the coaches, the new defensive coordinator, of course the defensive line coach that comes in, and Carter, Coach Carter's coming in here, and how he's really excited about adding him to it. So I mean, really, you look at the defensive side of the ball, I'm just really excited about it. And of course, the mentality of that team going into it is that, remember what they looked like last year when they were giving up chunk yardage, just getting burnt all over the place. It didn't make any sense to have that much talent, and we were surrendering that. So we're good to get Bo out of here, but we love what's going on here. I mean, I absolutely love what they're doing on the defensive side of the ball. So great moves as always by LSU. All right, let's move on to the next story, Uncle Mozzy. And of course, this one goes from a really positive story to a very sad and negative one. And this one's coming from the result from AFB.com's covering it, of the report that former LSU running back Darius Geis is suspended for 6 games. And like I said, and of course, Baton Rouge WAFB, former LSU free agent running back Darius Geis has been suspended for the first 6 games of the 2021 NFL season, according to Ian Rappaport's tweet. The Washington football team released Geis, a former 2018 second-round NFL draft pick, back in August of 2020 after he was arrested on domestic violence charges. As reported by the Washington Post, the charges included 1 count of strangulation, which is a felony. The other 3 charges were 3 counts of assault and battery, as well as 1 count of destruction of property. Now, in June of 2021, a Virginia judge dismissed the misdemeanor domestic violence charges against the former LSU running back, according to the report by the Washington Post. And of course, the report added that during a hearing Wednesday, July 23rd, Geis and alleged victim said they had reached a settlement, and that the resolution means that the 23-year-old Baton Rouge native will not go to trial, and the charges will not appear on his criminal record. So that's the inside right there on the sad story for Darius Geis. Uncle Mozzy, a lot of teams will kind of sway away from Darius Geis as well. Very sad story. Has so much promise coming out of LSU following Leonard Fournette, and he had a terrific career there coming out. He was supposed to be the next level. He got there and fizzled. Is there still a future for him in the NFL? What you think?
Absolutely, because here's the thing. I don't dig or delve too deep into these type of situations until they play out. And as it seems now, as it's played out, first off, let's go back to the initial charge. A lot of states have adopted, especially when you're talking about domestic violence, a lot of states have adopted the strangulation as a part of the actual charge. And it's something that is a lot of the time they throw on top of a domestic violence in order to make the domestic violence stick. Because once you put the strangulation on top of it, you have to understand that strips a person of all of their civil liberties. They can never own a gun. They can their rights to vote will be stripped away from them. You see, so and they have to actually prove a strangulation or attempted strangulation, and a lot of the times they can't, and that's why, as you saw in this case, the prosecution decided to start dropping charges, and they decided to go a civil route. Don't think for a minute that they didn't have a sit down or a powwow and look at the evidence presented versus the charges that were brought up, and didn't say to themselves, "Hey, this is going to be kind of hard to prosecute, especially with attempted strangulation or strangulation, because we would have to somehow prove beyond a reasonable doubt, not beyond a reasonable doubt, we'd have to prove through medical evidence, documented medical evidence, that there was a strangulation or an attempted strangulation that took place in the midst of a brawl, in the midst of some type of a domestic violence battle or brawl." She's wanting to settle out of court. So, a woman scorned is something really serious. And to be honest, she could have settled out of court at a later date after getting the actual conviction on the domestic violence side, or at least seeing how the conviction was going to go on the domestic violence side in order to proceed on the civil side. She didn't do that. it was almost as though they just dropped the civil side altogether, so that the criminal side altogether, and just decided to pursue civil charges, especially after the DA and the prosecution got with them and said, yo, this is going to be kind of hard to do. It is unfortunate because this is a cancel culture. So whether he did it or not, we got the whole Tory Lanez, Meg Thee Stallion thing going on now. So now we've got an accusation. It's an accusation of a female against a male. This male happens to be somewhat high profile, and in these cases, it never really works out well, depending on the level. And I think that guy's kind of overestimated his value. He's not Deshaun Watson, where we haven't heard anything about these supposed sexual misconduct allegations. He's not Ben Roethlisberger, who's got multiple rape allegations thrown away. At best, he's got to compare his situation directly and scale it to Ray Rice, who I was ironically just talking about a week ago. And what happened with his situation after the elevator incident, it was over with. And you're talking about a guy who rushed for over 3,000 yards and had like 6,000 receiving yards, one of the top all-purpose backs. And if I'm not mistaken, he won the Super Bowl in the Lights Out Super Bowl. So, I mean, they canceled him. It's over with for him. He'll never have a job again. I do not believe, because I've not seen any video evidence and the prosecution has dropped the charges, so it will not be on his record as given the civil lawsuit settlement. With that being said, I think that he's going to come as a value, but I think that he's going to be on Antonio Brown bus, and that he's going to have to earn his stripes and earn his way back into prominence. And obviously, we're in a sport where winning cures all. But he's going to have to take a tremendous pay cut and probably end up in a situation like a Detroit or the Jets, or maybe even, Jacksonville. Or he's going to have to end up in one of those types of teams that he's going to have to play his way back into prominence, and he's going to have to win. He's going to have to put up big yards, and that's going to be the determination as to whether or not he'll have an extended career. So I think the pertinent question we should be asking is whether or not he can get a job this upcoming football season. And I think for the right price, there are a lot of teams that can use services that he just happens to have. But he's going to have to use the remaining 10 games to really ball out of control and show that he belongs and that he's worthy and that he deserves to be on an NFL team long term.
Yeah, listen, the Ray Rice situation it's a bit different. I mean, you had the video that was just repugnant. I mean, he literally clubbed her. I mean, so hard that it was just extremely.
But you got to report the public opinion.
Right, but
that's all they're going to see.
Yeah, that's all. He hit that poor lady so hard.
Yeah, but that's all they're going to see. When they hear
he hit her, and she hit the wall and then hit the floor, and it was like, in the way he stood, it was like over her. And it's like, man, that was really tough. And plus, Ray Rice was toward the back end of his career. This guy is, and I agree, like with True Louisiana was saying, he's 22 or 23 years of age. So, I mean, of course, if there's a way back into the NFL, I mean, you had guys, I mean, let's be honest, a lot of these guys aren't Saints. I ain't talking New Orleans Saints. You know what I'm saying? A lot of these guys aren't Saints, man. I mean, be honest with you. You got guys smoking weed that get chance after chance. You got a few people that's doing things they not supposed to be doing, but he's still very much young. And if he can prove that he's on the up and narrow, the straight and narrow, then I don't see why he could not be allowed to get back in here. I know about the cancel culture, but you need to cancel a lot of these people with this cancel culture nonsense, because I'm pretty sure the ones that created it can't allow people to look into what the fuck they doing behind the scenes and see that they need to be canceled. So be careful with that. But my thing is, he should be a guy that should be allowed if he handles what he's supposed to handle and move forward. And of course, there are the things that are going on at LSU. There's also the information coming out about them stripping him out of the record books of LSU. It's almost like back in the day when you take on Xerxes or whatever, you either ally with me or I shall smite thee from the history books. And you will never have existed ever. The stuff like that. They used to do that. So, I mean, they're pulling them out of the record books at LSU. That was a report that I read. And of course, I mean, the kid has no way to go but up. So get it right And if he's serious about it, he should be allowed to come back. And of course, True Louise Animal does hit on a good point. He says, hope he finds his way back in the league like Kareem Hunt did with all field issues. So speak on that too, Uncle Mozzy.
Well, big difference. First off, Kareem Hunt was on a Super Bowl caliber team. So again, like we talked about in the beginning, winning cure, when I first talked, winning cures all. So that had a lot to do with it. And as far as the Ray Rice thing, although they did have a lot of differences, because there's no visual evidence that we can see and we can examine, I think that people automatically go that direction because that's the last taste that they. It's like if when you're a kid and you eat something, eggs or greens or potato salad, and you had the wrong person cooking it, like you think that that's the way it is, no matter who cooks it. So whether it's your grandmother cooked it and you didn't like it, so the next 15 people offer it to you, you're like, no, it's the same situation. Not only is that similar in that nature, but we as a society and as a cancel culture have gotten less and less tolerable when it comes to two things: sexual preference and violence towards women. We haven't even gotten that ground towards violence towards African Americans, as we have when we talking about not even violence, but just speaking out against people who may have different sexual preferences, and speaking out against or partaking or participating or condoning any type of violence towards a woman. That is a no-no in 2021 American society, more so than it's ever been in history, more so than any other race of people, or maybe with the exception of Asians, because they got a law passed relatively quickly for the anti-violence bill against Asians. But outside of that, cancel culture in 2021 is a lot more prominent and a lot more vicious than it was for Ray Rice in 2015 or 2016. So although the magnitude of crime was, I think, a little bit more intense, the tolerability of the public and the court of public opinion has gotten a lot more harsh and the penalties have gotten a lot more stiff since the Ray Rice incident. You got to look at it. Jay-Z had an incident not too long before Ray Rice that never even got brought to the light. So from Jay-Z's incident to Ray Rice's incident, pretty similar incidents, in magnitude. But did you see how one got completely canceled and lost everything, and one, it just got completely swept under the rug? Yeah. And that was just like a 2-year difference. So imagine what it is now from the time Ray Rice did it until 2021.
Absolutely. And then, of course, you're absolutely right on that. The culture has definitely changed. And you're right. We are a lot less tolerant for abuse to women, man. No doubt about it. You're absolutely right on that. All right. So first of all, I'd like to stop and give a big shout out to all the family members that are joining us in the chat, to the Tough Tiger Talk chat. Big ups to Revolt Control, brother Damien chiming in. Yes, sir, Damien. It's Eli Ricks is definitely starting opposite of Derek Stingley. I agree with you. That is the two best cornerbacks that LSU have, and they're going to be, and in essence, they're the best two combo cornerbacks in the SEC is Ricks and Stingley. So yes, sir, on that. And we'll see. If anything, it depends on Darius Geisen whether or not how he cleans his image up and show people that he's ready to move ahead with his life. So that, it all is not lost. And just because they take your stuff down, don't mean that you yourself can't step your game up and take it to the next level. This is just another hurdle. I'd like to give a shout out to Player X. Thank you, Player X. Appreciate you, man. Thank you for being here as well. Much love to you as well. Thank you. And go Tigers to you. So a lot of family members, GM Kev. What's up, GM Kev, who's the usual contributor here. Kev could not be in attendance, but he is on the show, but he's spectating and watching the show. So much love to Kev popping in here as well. And of course, yeah, Kev, he'll be popping in on the next one. So much love to my boy Kev as well. So all right, yes, what big ups to you, and we're gonna cover that, fam. That's the next article that we will cover. Damon, he's asking about what we saying in terms of the LSU record, and that's actually our final story that we're gonna cover. Is the prediction or the predicting each game that LSU has that's coming up. And let me see if I can pull that up. There we go. Game by game prediction as shown by LSU Wire. And it goes over all of the games for 2021. And let's see if you guys in a Tough Tiger Talk chat agree with that. So let's see what we said. Player X says 11-2. All right, thank you, my friend. All right, let's get into it. This is from Patrick Kahn of the LSU Tiger Wire. LSU Tigers were recently ranked at number 13 in the USA Today Sports AFCA poll. A lot of high expectations as Ogeron and company look for a bounce back season after finishing 5-5 in 2020. The new coordinators take over the Bayou Bengals. Looking at the 2021 schedule, the Tigers have a total of 4 ranked opponents on the upcoming slate of games. The first ranked matchup won't occur until October the 16th when the number 11 Florida Gators come to LSU Stadium looking for retribution. Let's hope they don't throw the game away like they did with Cold Taylor Shoe. So every ranked opponent will come in the final 6 weeks of the season. So let's look at it game by game. First game, Uncle Mozzy, and I want you to chime in as we go over each club. And Tough Tiger Talk family members, y'all feel free to chime in the live chat and then on the replay, the comment section on how you feel about today's topics that we covered, as well as the upcoming schedule. So the first one, according to Tiger Wire, September 4th at UCLA. He lists this as a prediction. And listen, before we get into this, family, we said this when we went over the LSU schedule when they released it. LSU coming back off that 5-5 season, we got pretty much a cupcake schedule up until you got matchup games against Auburn. We got to look at what Ole Miss and Mississippi State. We got to, Mississippi State kind of floundered after they beat us early on last year, but we wasn't really ourselves. We know that. And then we got the Lane Kiffin matchup with Ole Miss. That's intriguing. And then, of course, you got Alabama in there. Texas A&M always plays us tough. But outside of that, we have a pretty, I ain't gonna say a cupcake schedule. I guess I could, I'm gonna stick to it. I'm gonna say cupcake schedule up early until we get to the points where we start getting into the middle of October matchups. But anyway, let's get into it. Okay, the UCLA matchup, which Uncle Mozzy feels very nervous about. The first ever matchup between LSU and UCLA. That's kind of amazing that's the first ever matchup, because I remember hearing about them like, damn, they never played before. That's crazy. But fully expect new offensive coordinator Jake Peetz to unleash his offense on the Bruins defense that gave up almost 31 points per game last season. In 4 of the 7 games, opponents scored 38 plus points on their defense. Max Johnson, Kashawn Butte could have monster days in the open. He gives that an LSU win. Uncle Mozzy, you agree with that?
I do, as long as everybody kind of wraps their mind around the fact that UCLA can beat them if they don't stay locked and focused, and they start to think about late September, early October beforehand. I think that can end disastrous, playing on the West Coast on a building you never played and a team that you've never played. I think that can be classic trap if they don't watch it, but I think it's a winnable game. I think they can win it. I am nervous now because of the 2 injuries that we have, the 2 prominent defensive players. But I think that too is something that we can overcome.
Yeah, and remember that folds both ways too, my friend. Us going up there into their building and them never playing us before could also work in our favor, as the pressure could be on UCLA to uphold home field advantage. So we'll see how it all goes and if they got that defense together, but we most certainly will test it. Okay, September the 11th, matchup against the McNeese State Cowboys. And of course, this is another LSU win, despite playing in the same state. These 2 programs rarely meet on the football field. Their only matchup came in 2010 when the Tigers won 32-10, and it could be another major blowout in the home opener for LSU. Of course, the series between the 2 are 1-0. Uncle Mozzy, I would have to agree with him. This is going to be a win, big time for LSU. Uncle Mozzy, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's definitely going to be a win for the Tigers. No doubt in my mind. That's going to be a win.
Okay, so we 2-0 right here. Let's move on to the September the 18th matchup against the Chippewas of Central Michigan come to town. The first ever matchup between a lot of first ever matchups here. The first ever matchup between the Central Michigan Chippewas and the LSU Tigers goes down in mid-September. However, you will see a familiar face with the Florida Gators head coach Jim McElwain roaming the sidelines. How about that? LSU 2-1 against McElwain, but get ready for a 3-1 in favor of the Tigers. Do you agree with him on this one? 3-0.
Yeah, I think 3-0 is definitely against the Chippewas or whatever. Yeah, I think they would definitely ice that up.
Let me tell you something about Florida, man. The Gators people are almost as hardcore as we are, man. They ran McElwain out of Florida, man. He was getting death threats and everything. Ran his ass up out of there. All right, so September the 25th at Mississippi State, the Bulldogs. This is on the road. We're going up to Mississippi State on the Saturday to take on the Bulldogs. Prediction: LSU wins. Retribution will be on the mind of the LSU Tigers when they headed to Starkville, Mississippi to face the Bulldogs. Last year, Michael Leach was able to throw all over that defense, and everybody was, so that wasn't nothing new. 44-34 upset victory. The Tigers are 9-1 in Starkville since 2000. Max Johnson and company look to make it 10-1. Win indeed, Uncle Mozzy. Retribution, payback to what they did to us last year.
Brother, I don't know, because even our powerful year when we were undefeated, we had trouble against this ball club. So, like, yeah, we got to really keep an eye. Mississippi State and Ole Miss scared me to death. I'm just be honest with you. I think it's going to be a win, but we better come to play because
the defense is always tough. Now, if they can get the offense together, they can be something fierce. I get you on that.
Yes, and like if we play this pretend game, like, oh, it's not, don't worry about it. They'll definitely punch us in the mouth, and we won't even see it coming. And I don't believe, at least at that point, because we won't have any real ammunition to really shoot at. I don't believe we'll be ready to come back from 2-3 scores down in that ball game. I don't believe that we'll be ready just yet at that point. I think we're going to need every available trick in the book. I think the defense is going to have to step up, and I think we're going to have to. It's one of those other games. We got to stay laser sharp focused, especially having coming from playing St. Aug and Holy Cross the 2 previous weeks. When we get to Mississippi State, it's going to be a different ball club. They're not going to be Chippewas, and they're not going to be the Purple Knights. So we got to wrap our minds around that and stay focused and come to play, because these are not going to be the previous 2 opponents.
St. Aug, you mean L.W. Higgins? I mean, because
the Gregory Gators.
I'm telling you, man, because listen, you make a great point, because we'll be flying high after the Chippewas and McNeese State, all this kind of stuff. And yes, and you're right, going into Mississippi State, it's going to be tough, despite the history of us dominating them, but they've always had a fierce defense. Leach is trying to get that offense together. He put up 44 points on us last year. But then again, we had Bo Pelini running the defense, and they were totally lost, no energy. It was a disaster. I don't anticipate an outing like that, but you're absolutely right. This will be probably a real competitive game besides that UCLA matchup. All right, so where you stand at right now, Uncle Mozzy, make the call, because this guy has him right now with 4-0. What are you saying? 3-1?
3-1. It's either going to be UCLA or it's going to be Mississippi State. But whatever bugs we need to work out, it can't go beyond the Mississippi State game, because then we'll be playing from behind, trying to chase one of those playoff spots.
Okay. So hold that ranking. You're 3-1. So far, we got 4-0. As you can see, the history. LSU leads the season. The history 75-36-3. Wow, they just domination. All right, then of course the month shifts the changes, and it's in October, and we get ready for some SEC, some heavy competition coming in. That's Auburn matching up with the Tigers, and the prediction is LSU beats Auburn. From this writer standpoint, it was the most demoralizing loss for LSU in this season history with Auburn. A 37-point loss didn't sit well with Coach O and company. Looked to really welcome new head coach Brian Harsin to the SEC. Now LSU also hasn't lost to Auburn at home since 1999. The season series, LSU leads 31-23-1. That's the series history right there. Uncle Mozzy, Auburn, new head coach, SEC. It's always a tough rivalry there, but they come into Death Valley. Who wins?
What time is the game?
I'm gonna have to pull that up. I want to say it's
7 o'clock.
Is it 7 o'clock?
I like LSU. 11. Okay. 1 or 3, I'll probably lean more towards Auburn.
Okay, why would the time matter? They're at home against Auburn.
LSU just the Death Valley home field advantage, and this might sound weird, but it only works at night. It doesn't seem to work during the day. What? 7 o'clock night game, Death Valley. Oh yeah, I take LSU against shit, New England, the Patriots. I take them against the Buccaneers in Death Valley at nighttime, at 7:00. But I don't like 11 o'clock game, 1 o'clock games, 3 o'clock game. Not in that building. I just don't, especially against opponents of this caliber. I don't mind playing opponents in Death Valley, like if the Arizona Wildcats or some off-brand team, the Horned Frogs, or some high school team coming. Yeah, great, whatever. We can play them anytime. But a team of this caliber, especially during the day, Auburn just seems to play really good during the day. Especially going into the evening, they just really play good. They just do. I don't know what it is about that team.
Well, only thing I got from them is this to be determined, TBD right now, with the home game against Auburn. So I don't know unless somebody can see it on the schedule. I looked up several schedules just now, and it's to be determined what time this game will be. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so you got this as a loss, all right? Is it?
It depends on the game time, and it's another thing we got. This is another thing that we just totally not putting into account, with the exception of UCLA, because that's the only game that we're gonna go in with preseason rankings. We have no idea. Mississippi State might come out and tear ass, and they might be 3-1 or 4-0 by the time we meet them. Auburn might be 4-0 and ranked in the top 6 or 7. We just don't know. Anything beyond UCLA is just a stretch, because I don't know where. I know we're 13. I know the deck should shuffle a little bit, but how far up, how far down, I can't predict, nor do I know. And
I said LSU gets the win against Auburn Tigers at home. LSU gets the win in Death Valley against the Tigers. So I don't know. Uncle Mozzy, I guess he's kind of whiffering on that, but I say they get the win against Auburn, man. Last year, we got to pay them. It's another payback game, what Auburn did, and of course what Mississippi State did. We got that in our minds, man. I mean, we definitely got that on our minds and hearts, and they come into play. Okay, October the 9th, we got the Kentucky Wildcats. Surely you won't waffle on this pick, Uncle Mozzy. A prediction LSU wins has been 7 years since LSU and Kentucky met on the field. The last time the two coming in Baton Rouge this time around, they were battling Lexington. The Wildcats are looking to build off of last season. Beating LSU would help their case. Kentucky is in the search for their second win over the Tigers since 2000. And of course, you look at the history series, LSU leads 40-16-1. Okay, Uncle Mozzy. Kentucky Wildcats, does it depend on what time? Is it 1 o'clock or a 3 o'clock or 7 o'clock game? What do you say?
Well, according to this picture, though, that's a big ass quarterback, bro. I don't know if that's the quarterback or what. That dude's pretty big. But look,
he on his tippy toes, bro.
That dude's big as shit, bro. He's like a creative player. But listen, it's my birthday weekend. I'll be turning 31 years old. I'm rolling the dice. I'm taking LSU on this.
31.
Yeah, 31.
Cut it out, man.
Baskin Robbins.
I got you. Okay.
Got 31 flavors for all the ladies out there.
I'll let the plug hit it. All right, so that's it. Let's move on to the next one. Is October the 16th versus the number 11 Florida Gators. Now, we're getting a little serious here, Uncle Mozzy. Now, he predicts LSU to win. Last year was a wild finish at the Gators when they threw the game away, so to speak. And the Throne shoe extended the drive for LSU, allowed Cade York to hit the winning field goal. Florida missed. That was a big collapse from Florida last year. Florida missed an opportunity to tie the game. Johnson will be a year wiser and should win another close one. Of course, the series history, Florida Gators leads at 33-31-3. So it's always been a tough battle between LSU and Florida, as we know, during this one. This was going to be in Death Valley. Uncle Mozzy, what do you think about LSU against Florida?
Well, it's appropriate time. October is the 16th. That's a few days out before Halloween because I'm scared to death. This is another one of those games. What time are we playing? If we're playing for 7 o'clock, I like LSU. Anything before 7, I don't know. I still like LSU. But it just depends on what I see. What Florida team I see through week 3. We got to come back and redo these predictions. At least after the Chippewas going into the Mississippi State game, we're going to come and redo these predictions after we get to see some of these teams, because on paper, Florida looks pretty evenly matched with LSU. So it's going to come down to mental mistakes. It's going to come down to first-year quarterbacks. It's going to come down to injuries. It's going to come down to intangibles that we just can't see and or predict at the moment just yet. So I like LSU either way. I'd be a lot more comfortable knowing if the game started at 7 o'clock, because that's just like a big deal breaker for me. I do not like games. Listen, if you notice one thing, if you go back all of these clips, right? You notice that all of these games are nighttime games for the Death Valley games. I don't know if you noticed that or not, but look at the surroundings. None of these are daytime games, and they do that except for like the scrub team. See, the scrub teams, you'll get day game. That's who plays in the day. That's a night game. I can guarantee you that Mississippi State, that's another team that we played like scrubbish. But I can get all our heavy hitting games are going to be all nighttime games. I can guarantee you that. That's just the only way. That's how we have to schedule it, because that's the only way we can win.
Well, I mean, listen, a lot of these games getting this deep into the schedule all yet to be determined, and that's for obvious reasons. So we'll as we get closer, we'll find out the time zones on some of these games. But I think regardless of the time, I think LSU, whether it's early or midday or a night game,
you can call me superstitious, but y'all are gonna call. I'm gonna revisit this week 4, 5, 6, and I'm gonna make y'all tell me how great. Look, that's another look at Scrubs. Look at Scrubs all daytime. Scrubs are daytime. It's not a problem. Nighttime, we not doing the nighttime. We got Ole Miss scrub game. Unless they come out
number 25, they're ranked 25 in the poll. So there's 4 people on this LSU schedule that have a national ranking. Ole Miss is also up there. So you still consider them a scrub against LSU?
I do. I think Ole Miss is a benefactor of the SEC West, and the fact that their strength of schedule always is going to be hard because they always got to play Auburn. They always got to play Alabama, LSU, Mississippi State. And for that reason alone, they're going to be ranked. They got to play A&M. They got to play LSU. So when you look at their schedule, they've got to play 4 or 5 ranked teams every single year. So if they have anything, then I think their quarterback coming back. I think this is not his junior or senior year. The quarterback, didn't he punish us like in 19? I think they gave us the most trouble out of any team, with the exception of that first game at Texas, or in Texas State, in Dallas Stadium, or wherever we played, we beat them. Outside of that game, Ole Miss gave us the hardest game. Ole Miss played us harder than Alabama that year. We almost lost to them. We had to revamp our whole deal and come out the second half and crush that, because they actually were beating us with that same guy. So, like, again, Ole Miss is always going to be the benefactor, because they're going to pull off an upset. They're going to pull off an upset for one of these teams I just mentioned: A&M, LSU, Alabama, Auburn, Mississippi State. Ole Miss will pull off an upset in one of those games. They'll probably beat Mississippi State because they're ranked higher, and I think they're pretty scaled. They scale pretty evenly. But if they beat an A&M or an LSU or an Auburn or an Alabama, that's going to automatically catapult them. It's almost like Mississippi State when they had Dak Prescott back in 2014. Remember that team? That team came out, was absolutely on fire, kicking everybody's ass until Dak got hurt sometime like right after the midpoint of the season. So
yeah,
like,
well, that's Matt Corral, man. He didn't have a great game passing, although he had 5 interceptions against LSU. We won the game 53-48. But he was running all over the field on us. He had 17 rushes for 158 yards. He threw 3 touchdowns, 251 yards, but he had 5 interceptions. And our defense was so poorish. Despite that much turnovers, we were still able to be.
But he was a freshman. He was a freshman.
He's a tough quarterback, no doubt about it, man.
Right. So, that's probably why they're ranked number 25. He's returning. And they played all of these teams, the LSUs, the Alabamas, the Auburn's. They know what these teams are capable of, and they know how these teams are coming. And they got experience on their side, because it's not like none of those players they're not beating down the draft doors. So with that being said, they get a lot of returning kids. And when you get that many returning kids back on your roster, it helps strengthen your program as a whole. And they'll give you, almost like brownie points just off the fact that you're the last man standing that's that old in that conference. Like, you're the elder of the conference. Think about it. He's the elder quarterback of the whole division, the whole conference.
Well, all I can say about Matt Corral is that he's a hell of an athlete, man. And last year, our defense just wasn't up to par. But this year, defense have a lot of athletes on. Yeah, he's going to play, maybe not as a quarterback. He's kind of undersized, but perhaps a wide receiver type, or something like that. I mean, but you can mix it up with this kid. If anybody is a future
Taysom
Taysom
Hill.
Hill clone type of
Taysom
dude,
Hill.
this is Corral. Yeah, Corral has even though he's a better passer, but it's intriguing, man, to say the least about it. But the writer also has Ole Miss winning the game. I don't think Ole Miss wins the game against LSU. I think a lot of the teams that beat LSU last year, we're gonna have our backup. We're gonna be bowled up against these guys. We got a reason to kick some ass against Ole Miss. We got some reason to kick some ass against Mississippi State and teams like this. We're gonna be bowled up from last year when you wanted, just because listen. Overall, we have a lot to prove here. We have a lot to prove because Coach O knows, and we know, and everybody knows, that's an LSU football person that support the team, know that LSU is on a mission of revenge and retribution. We got to get this right because last year's was so bad, it tainted the year before. That's how bad last year was. It tainted the championship year before, and almost it was so bad it made it appear like you had these bastards out here saying that, I told you that was an aberration. That'll never happen again. That's how bad last year was for LSU. So, I mean, this year has to be one of the years where we set the record straight, and I think they will. So we'll be bowled up and ready for Corral because to a degree, we didn't know everything Corral was what he was about. But there's plenty of film on him that we can break down. Our defense is younger, a lot more experienced and faster. We got a lot of athletes there. So we'll be ready, better prepared for Matt Corral with him because we know once you stop Corral, you stop Ole Miss because Kiffin runs everything through this guy. He's phenomenal. You stop him, you stop Ole Miss. And, of course, with Mike Leach is the same thing. If the defense has to stop Leach's offense, and then their defense is tough, don't get me wrong, they always play hard, but we should be able to beat Mississippi State and Ole Miss this year. And, like I said, we'll be bowled up for these people because we got to pay them back. That's for real. Okay, and of course, we move to the November the 6th matchup 2 weeks after this Ole Miss matchup, so we'll have some time to prepare. And, of course, look how the series history lead LSU beating them 64-44. So we always crush the hell out of Ole Miss. So we just got to keep the trend continuing. Now let's go to the big game. Number 1 ranked Alabama Crimson Tide. Now the writer has Alabama winning this one as well. And let's get into it. And I'm gonna let you say what you're gonna say. Prediction: Alabama wins. Now, not what LSU fans want to hear, but the Crimson Tide are loaded up once again for another run, despite rolling out a brand new quarterback. He has all the talent around him. If the cornerback duo of Stingley and Ricks are up to task, and you know they are, this could be a much closer matchup than last season. A Tigers win in Tuscaloosa would only be the third since 2011. So going to Alabama and taking them on, as you can see, the series lead is 54-26-5, which Alabama be getting a lot away with a lot of it. This is a safe pick for most people who don't want to be ridiculed for picking LSU to beat Alabama. I guarantee if you went back 2 years ago during a championship year and looked at these same people predictions, I guarantee you they picked Alabama to beat LSU then. See, that's the move. Most people don't want to step out on a limb and says, oh, this year we're going to get LSU. Because the same people 2 years ago when we ran through the nation, through national football, when we beat everybody in college, they were not picking LSU to go to the national championship then. They got on board once you started steamrolling everybody. So, I mean, I'm going to give Uncle Mozzy an opportunity to get on board now, or is he going to follow and jump on the bandwagon and play it safe? Uncle Mozzy, who wins this matchup November the 6th in Tuscaloosa? Is it LSU or is it Alabama?
Well, I got an interesting take on this one. It really depends on how healthy will Stingley and Ricks be. If they're healthy, with the addition of Mike Jones, who has had experience playing this Alabama Crimson Football Tide team, in my opinion, with better quarterback play than they currently have, better receiving core than they currently have, better running game than they currently have. He's already seen them at their absolute best. With Stingley and Ricks covering a lot of people with some one-on-ones, making it really, really hard for them to push the ball downfield, they'll have to rely heavy on the run game to open it up. And I think that with the experience Mike Jones brings, as well as that real stout defensive line we have, I think that we can possibly, especially if it's at nighttime, I think that we can possibly beat this Alabama team.
Okay, so if it's at night, we beat the
If it's at
Alabama
night
team.
and everybody's healthy, we beat them. Yep,
If
absolutely.
it's during the day and everybody healthy, do we beat them?
It's a problem. We can't win during the day. It's just that we got to play all scrub teams. So I don't know who you got to get on the phone, but you need to tell them to schedule all our ranked teams at 7:00. or later. 7:00 or later. Seriously.
Okay, so let's get this straight. 7:00, the night energies, the moon.
Look it up. Hey, look it up.
LSU.
Look up LSU's record in Death Valley for 7:00 games versus 11 or 1 o'clock or 3 o'clock games. Daytime game versus nighttime game. LSU is probably got a 95% overall win record on nighttime games versus maybe 40 or 50% daytime games. And keep in mind, a lot of the daytime games be scrub games that you don't even feel like watching. And they still only about 50 or 60, maybe 70%. It's nowhere near the winning percentage of nighttime games, period. We cannot win in the daytime.
You know, it sounds crazy to me, family, that Uncle Mozzy's dropping this, man. But listen, Uncle Mozzy be coming from different places with his thought process at times, unique vantage points. But let's investigate what he's saying. Is there any, truth to what he's saying? I am not saying that he's, falsifying anything. But let's take a look at, let's investigate what Uncle Mozzy's saying, man, because perhaps he might have a point. So I did, Uncle Mozzy. Look up, as you know, you challenged me. Look up. I'm a guy. I'm gonna do it. And I did look up the percentages, and I will share them with the Tough Tiger Talk family.
Okay.
Now this is the SEC top winning percentage in night games since 2005. LSU has an 86% win percentage. 71 wins versus 11 losses since 2005. SEC's top winning percentage in night games since 2005.
That's at his home game. That's Death Valley.
Night games. And they saying top winning percentage in night home games since 2005. Alabama's 26-2. The Tigers are 45-4.
Trying to tell you, brother, I ain't making this up, dog.
And they have the SEC top winning percentage in night games since 2005. They have more wins than Alabama by far. 71 wins versus Alabama's 45 is the closest in SEC play. Yep. So very intriguing, man, to say the truth. And a lot of, and I myself looking at it saying, this is crazy. Now, for people who want to know where is this from, this is coming from Saturday Down South. Brad Crawford. This is an article that he put up 6 years ago. This is a 6 year.
That was before the 2019 run.
Yes, right. So, and of course it goes into it and it looks at the data of teams playing at night. And it shows LSU's right there. Home games, as you can see right here, 71-11 at night, 86% win percentage. They're 45-5 at home, 17-4 on the road, and neutral sites 9-2. Overall, 103-29, 64% completion in afternoon games.
You see what I'm saying?
So,
the afternoon game, I told you going to drop down to 60-70% all day.
So that is Uncle Mozzy is bringing up a very interesting thinking in there. And also, how about the daytime matchups? What's that look like, Uncle
Daytime?
Mozzy?
I don't give it any more than I don't give afternoon games any more than 55-65% tops. And that's since we've been a viable force since maybe 03, 04. Since 03, 04, when we came on as a true powerhouse, when we had to split that title with USC that year, that was the 03, 04, 05. Since then, I can guarantee you our afternoon game win percentage is 55-65% tops.
I'm looking at I'm gonna have to dig on this one to find out LSU football record during the day. I'm gonna have to kind of dig on that one there. I pulled that article up but
It's not even close. I can guarantee you. I hate
be.
Davis.
I mean, yeah. Well, I'm saying it probably is not as close as based on all of that. Well, what I just seen there. So, I mean, very intriguing. What do you think? What the Tough Tiger Talk family members? How they feel about that article we just shared with the family members? Does that kind of sway you guys a bit? Y'all let me know in the chat. Truth says I've noticed that someone, though over the years, what he's saying. Damien says we are stacked. I keep saying that on both sides, but we're going to need that running game. We have the potential at that position, but I feel we're going to do as the running game goes. So we go as the running game goes. Thank you, Damien. He also says I've been knew that about the day and night games, but eventually that it's got to come to an end. It's been going on for a while, so it's intriguing, man, to say the least, that they feel uncomfortable at nighttime more so than anything. But yes, all of the games are not going to be at night. And despite the fact that over the last several seasons, LSU's won quite a phenomenal amount of games during the day. So it doesn't tell
team, though.
It doesn't tell you.
You can't give me 5 games LSU has won since 2018 with top 10 opponents.
But where's your data on that? I mean,
I just know, bro. I just know because I know. I just watch and observe. I didn't look up any stats about the day versus night, but I knew for a fact it was up north of 90% on nighttime home games. And I was real close overall at 86% because I had given it 90. And I'm telling you, LSU, when you look at daytime games, all of the daytime wins they had are against scrub opponents. It's always going. If you look at the schedule right now, I can guarantee you all of the scrub opponents are at Death Valley, right, during the day. That's how they schedule it. That's how they've always scheduled it.
Well, yes. I mean, that's true. I mean, we did have, wasn't that night game against Southeastern? Wasn't that a night game against Southeastern that they kind of took a different rate for the majority of the time? Mostly said the scrub team, some of the lesser known teams that we played that we beat up on.
Scrub. Say it with it, not lesser known. Scrub.
Well, I mean, you got to still provide data on that daytime stuff, Uncle Mozzy. Damon says,
you could just take my word for it. I'm Uncle Mozzy.
Okay, here you go, Uncle Mozzy. He's throwing in this claim right there. But it's intriguing, man. We're going to have to keep on looking at that. Uncle Mozzy is just speaking from experience. I asked him to present the data to back up his daytime theory. But, I was able to cover him on a nighttime schedule based on information that was covered by Saturday Down South that shows you that LSU is comfortable at night playing. I wish the man would also did a daytime and made a comparative ranking or list between night and day games. That would have been intriguing. I'm gonna have to do some more research on it. See if I.
All you could just take Uncle Mozzy's word for it that we win more at nighttime than the daytime. So we'll take Uncle
Mozzy. Take Uncle Mozzy's word for it. There you go. We'll take Uncle Mozzy's word.
That's it. See how much easier that is than to fight this.
See, there you go. All right. So with that being said, fam, we're gonna tip out on that. Much love to the family members. We appreciate y'all joining us for this episode of Tough Tiger Talk. Please feel free, if you're not a subscriber, to hit the subscribe button and join the Tough Tiger Talk family. Also feel free to hit the bell for future notifications and also share the show's link in your social media feed as we look to build the Tough Tiger Talk platform. So with that being said, Uncle Mozzy, I'll give you the last thought or last word before we dip out.
Don't really have any. We got to just pay attention to those injury updates as they become available. We got to make sure we're on top of that, man, 100%, because what we don't need are any surprises or any type of situation where we are not going 100% week one, because this is not the pros. It does not matter about winning or losing. You have to win and you have to dominate. You expected to do that, especially in the SEC, especially with now having 21 straight years of being ranked in the top 25 preseason coaches in AP poll. You got to live up to that. Alabama lives up to it. Florida lived up to it. Georgia lived up to it. You got to live up to it, LSU. I don't want any of these come out flat. I don't know what's going on. Woe is me seasons. I gave y'all a pass. I roasted for giving y'all a pass during COVID. And everybody gave all y'all a pass because y'all came off an unbelievably historic season. And a lot of people may have held y'all to that standard because y'all came off of that prolific season. But I'm here to tell you, That means absolutely, Jack. You know what? At this point, if y'all come out flat-footed in the next 3 weeks, y'all will definitely see what your ass looks like as they hand it to you in your hands. Don't do it. Okay? Rest up. Be easy. Stay out of the club. Stop smoking weed. Do everything that you need to do, right, in order to come out mentally and physically prepared when you play UCLA in 2.5, 3 weeks. Period.
All right, word said. Uncle Mozzy gives letting the young Tiger team know, but I think they will be prepared. I mean, after last year, I think they'll have the backup. They'll be bowled up, and they got disrespected by a lot of people last year, and they remember that. Coach O remembers that, and of course, there's a lot at stake this season. The schedule's not as tough as what it was the previous season. I think that helps out as well. But we got something for these teams in this year, and for Alabama. We got to go to Alabama. But I really do feel like this Tiger team wants to be tested. The big thing is running the ball, like Damien said. That's a big caveat because I think the defense will be even better and faster than what it was last year. We can be able to neutralize some of these athletic players, quarterbacks like Ole Miss has, but against Alabama. I'm also saying that the running game, that was a key point. Last year, the running game wasn't with us that much. We've got to get the running game back. We've got to get those guys, TD Price. And we got to get these guys on board with what we're doing. So with that being said, I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for chiming in. And we'll see you next week, next Saturday on Tough Tiger Talk. Go Tigers.
TheWhoThatDaily.com. That's right, TheWhoThatDaily.com. Your one-stop shop for everything New Orleans Saints, New Orleans Pelicans, LSU Tigers, even the top flight boxing news. So if you're a Who That and you're looking for a place to stay up on your team, TheWhoThatDaily.com is your site. TheWhoThatDaily.com for the sport Who That in all of us.